We certainly are not starting from scratch.
We're starting from scratch.
That was Vice President Kamala Harris making false claims about the administration's...
The actual plan of getting the vaccine doses into people's arms was really rather vague. It was not a well-coordinated plan.
I know there are idiots on other cable news channels that will say, well, you know, this mom and pop store was vandalized during the summer riots, and that's just as bad as the United States Capitol being vandalized. No, actually, no, jackass, it's not. I'm not going to confuse a taco stand with the United States Capitol.
Isn't it Taco Tuesday today?
I guess it is.
My goodness, that's right. Somebody destroyed your taco stand. Damn it, you have plenty of means to rebuild it and reconstitute it and make yourself whole again. We can't fix a Capitol building, which, by the way, wasn't destroyed. It
wasn't destroyed, and it belongs to us, by the way.
Right. It belongs to us, and it's something that can be rebuilt very quickly. And somebody's private taco stand is something that would that their livelihood probably depends upon. So Joe Scarborough being a complete and total jerk there. Can you imagine that? Your taco stand. My God, what does he think of everybody in that neighborhood? If you have a taco stand, you are busting your rear end for a living.
Your taco stand is not as important as the United States.
He should be.
Congress.
He could just as easily make Teslas instead of tacos. Jesus Christ.
You should try and be people like me.
That said, right, the taco stand guy is not somebody like me. That's his problem. He should have been somebody like Joe Scarborough.
Unbelievable. His tone is just rage-inducing.
Yeah. You know what? And also,
people complain about the mom and pop shops, but some taco stand, like, excuse me, that made my blood boil
also, not for nothing, but who are generally the purveyors of tacos at taco stands?
Yeah, I would say, like, BIPOCs are.
Yes, I was going to say Latinx. So there you go. That's Joe Scarborough just being a total a-hole. Now, I have to disclose something to you, Alice.
Okay.
I had a personal... What's wrong there? Something happening?
No, I'm just shifting your camera type.
I had a personal interaction with Joe Scarborough. I want you to have to keep shifting.
Okay.
A few years ago in 2015 when he came up to New Hampshire, and he could not have been a nicer guy. So I hate to say that he's probably not a total jerk, but he's obviously an arrogant...
he had a jerk moment there.
Yes, he would say he had a jackass moment.
Yeah.
And mess with a taco stand. Taco stands are holy relics in this country. We love taco stands.
Of course.
And
especially on Taco Tuesday.
Right, on Taco Tuesday. And also, let's get the push going here. You guys listening to the Burn Barrel podcast, can we have names for the Burn Barrel podcast? They're the Jerry Callahan, who I'll be on tomorrow. Again, twice in a week. It's funny when the sports dry up, he has to come back to Fat Boy again and again on his bended knee. Mm-hmm. Well, I accepted it again and again, shamelessly, in seconds. So Jerry Callahan has the Calla fans. Kirk Minahan has minifans. Mm-hmm. And what are our fans? Don't say just a few fans. That's not funny. I don't want any hateful DMs and or to be exposed. What are our Burn Barrel people? Barrelers? Burn barrelers? Burners? No, I think it's something entirely different. I don't know. We'll have to solicit. If you guys can think of something that's cool that we can call you, Burn Barrel. I'll think of it too. So I don't know. You know what's the funny thing is that maybe I've given Dr. Anthony Fauci a bad rap here, because he seems to be he's actually a perfect bureaucrat. Mm-hmm. And he's a perfect lifer as a bureaucrat.
Yeah.
Because he can fit in with a group of incompetents seamlessly. Any political party, doesn't matter. Democrats, Republicans. If you have a bunch of circling, whirling in the wind, clueless, vacuous bureaucrats, he has a place right in the middle of that table. He is good to go. This guy can hit the ground running. And he is just as crazy and as disjointed as the Trump reaction to the public communications were with the coronavirus, with him musing there and throwing things out about using sunlight in your lungs and whatever, and the hydrochloroquine, which he fell in love with, whatever. As unhinged and a little odd as that was, Fauci fits right in with this administration's fierce and distorted, diluted, demented messaging, and he goes right for it. He doesn't matter. He is willing to. He will say whatever you need to say. Is it a public health crisis to be outside yelling and singing and screaming right next to each other? Yes, it is. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's that easy for Fauci. He is happy to turn on a dime. You know, the masks are good, the masks are good. The masks aren't good, the masks aren't good. I'll say whatever you want me to say. As long as you put a camera in front of me, you to wind me up, I will say anything you want me to say. So, you remember about 3 weeks ago now, Fauci was asked about the Trump administration's preparedness for the coronavirus.
Is the Biden administration starting from scratch with the vaccine distribution effort, or are you picking up where the Trump administration left off?
No, I mean, we certainly are not starting from scratch because there is activity going on in the distribution. But if you look at the plan that the president has put forth about the things that he is going to do, namely get community vaccine centers up, get pharmacies more involved, where appropriate.
This is the too cute by half threading of the needle by Fauci to make sure that he doesn't slam himself by saying that the last team sucked, and at the same time he can caress and massage the shoulders of Joe Biden.
Get the Defense Production Act involved, not only perhaps with getting more vaccine, but even the things you need to get a good vaccine program. For example, needles and syringes that might be more useful in that. So it's taking what's gone on, but amplifying.
This is nothingness.
Yeah.
You can get the Defense
It was
Production
good
Act
before, but it will be better, and it's not from scratch, but we are going to improve.
And perhaps use the Defense Production Act, the act that we determined last time around that we didn't need to.
That Trump was using all the time,
right,
by
but
the way.
they also didn't need to use a wide scale because we had bribed all the companies to do what we wanted to.
Right.
You use it as a cudgel. You know, use the threat of it. Say, okay, we'd really like you to turn around, and instead of making thermometers, we'd like you to make syringes. And then
if they don't, then
right,
you
and you
use
say,
the
and
defense
you don't have to, but if you don't, we're going to make you.
Right, and it's it's a carrot and stick thing. Operation Warp Speed is the carrot, and like we promised, we'll buy millions and millions of vaccines from you if you make them, and then this is the stick. Like if you don't make the stuff to get these out faster, then we're gonna make you do it. So, but the combination has worked.
Yeah,
we have vaccines that are coming out more than a lot of countries. So.
Yes, we're way ahead of where we were supposed to be.
It in a big way.
President Biden said that what was left was abysmal, essentially. I mean, is there anything actionable that you are taking from the previous administration?
He was in it. It's so funny the way they say that.
He was in the previous one and the previous one.
Or is there a chance? Yes, you're right. You're right. He was in it every previous administration since Reagan. He was there, okay? And it's so funny. It's like, there's anything that you could glean from what the last group did? It's like, I happened to be eavesdropping during the last one, and...
Well,
and is that delaying your efforts to get the vaccine? I mean, that's the question.
No, I mean, we're coming in with fresh ideas, but also some ideas that were not bad ideas with the previous administration.
Yes, that Dr. Fauci had mentioned, as a matter of fact.
You can't say it was absolutely not usable at all. So we are continuing, but you're going to see a real ramping up of it.
So, but this is...
That was 3 weeks ago.
That was 3 weeks ago, okay. And then over the weekend, Kamala Harris gave them both barrels.
What I explained to the mayors, there was no stockpile, right? It's, in many ways...
No stockpile
of vaccines, right? So we're looking at this. There was no national strategy or plan for vaccinations. We were leaving it to the states and local leaders to try and figure it out. And so in many ways we're starting from scratch on something that's been raging for what I explained to the mayors.
So there you go. That's good enough.
Yeah, I mean, so all of her points are insane.
She's
weird. Like they're just...
She's lazy. She's not studied any of this stuff.
So,
she wouldn't say stockpile and vaccine in the same sentence if she did.
Right. I mean, the stockpile issue, what happened was there was a miscommunication with the Trump administration, but there wasn't like some malfeasance. It was just that initially when they started rolling out, they were setting aside, because you need 2 shots, right? So they were setting aside half the shots and not sending them out to the states and saying, we're going to hold these ones back for the people that were vaccinating their second dose, right? And then there was some discussion amongst the scientific community and the CDC, and they kind of said, like, look, you know, there's a lot of immunity, not 95%, but like 70% conferred by 1 shot. So, and we don't have a guarantee that those people are going to come back and get their second shot. Like only, 80% of them are. You'll always miss some people who forget or whatever, right? And plus, in addition to that, it's looking like the companies are going to be fine with how much vaccine they're making, so we'll have plenty to give everyone their second shot. So they changed their recommendation and said, so we're not going to hold back half the doses and save them for later. We're going to get as many doses into as many people now, and we're just going to expect and hope that Moderna and Pfizer are going to keep up with production enough so that everybody can get their second dose. So there was like a change in determination that was made like in mid-January roughly. The issue was the communication, because the Trump administration, decided to start distributing that half that they had held back, and then they announced it afterwards. They said, we're going to do this. So the states were thinking there was more coming than there was, because the Trump administration had already started distributing it before they explained what they were doing. So they were thinking there was more coming, but there weren't. It was just the initial held back ones. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right,
but
right, of course.
There's never, it's not like something happened to the stockpile.
Right.
The stockpile was given to the states. It's the same thing like with where they were saying, remember when they were saying there were 20 million missing doses of vaccine? Do you remember that talking point from a couple weeks ago? Oh, we're missing 20 million doses, and all these psychotic people on Twitter were speculating that Jared Kushner sold them to Israel because that's completely sane and whatever. But so there were the 20 million missing doses. All that was just somebody decided to subtract the difference between the number of doses that had been given to the states and the number of doses that had been administered to people. So they were like, what happened to these other 20 million? They just haven't been given out yet. They're sitting in community health centers in Massachusetts waiting for the equitable participants to show up or whatever. They're not like missing. They're just not, they just
haven't been distributed locally.
Right.
Yeah,
So the Biden administration is going, we're trying to figure out what happened to these missing doses, and all the like left-wing resistance people are freaking out that Trump lost 20 million doses of vaccine, but they're not lost. They just got sent to the states. So
it's a lot of CYA, because a lot of states have been doing the vaccination distribution in the spirit of equity.
Yeah, but all the doses got sent out to the states. They're all getting used. There's not some conspiracy. There's not some
It's pretty standard politics as well, that you would come in and say that, it's much worse than we thought. So that way, when everybody is vaccinated, it's a bigger celebration, and then more fundraising for Biden. It's going to be a midterm election.
To be fair, a month before the vaccine came out, Kamala Harris was saying there was going to be absolutely no vaccine, and that was ridiculous that Trump would say that, and he was just, rushing it, and it wasn't safe, and she didn't trust him and wasn't going to take it if there was one.
Yeah, she was an anti-vaxxer on the ground floor.
So, the fact that now they're criticizing, and their goal, we want 100 million doses in the first 100 days, Trump was already at that level. By the time Biden took office, we were already having days where we were distributing more than 1 million vaccine doses a day. And I would expect that to go up over time. Trump was already meeting the Biden administration goal by the time Biden took office, after being told by them for months and months that it couldn't be done at all, that there was going to be no vaccine whatsoever. So the idea that now they're going to come in and say he didn't distribute them fast enough, like when they were saying that it wasn't possible for him to do anything at all, and then he's meeting their goal before they even get in there, it's so ridiculously cynical that anybody would believe this. Like, I can't believe the media doesn't push back on this. Like, what happened, Kamala, to saying that there was no way to have a safe vaccine by December?
Right. Well, the media was saying it too. They were saying that he was dreaming of being just doing it for the election and being into, they're all guilty in this. So this was talked about, like Kamala Harris is calling this whole thing starting from scratch, was talked about on Fox Business with Maria Bartiromo, who had Larry Kudlow on, who worked in the Trump White House, of course. And Kudlow's mic apparently was hot, or he was just really loud next to her, because as she went through and played the Kamala audio, he can be heard giving his opinion of Kamala's assessment.
Questions over the probe into the origins of this global pandemic. Plus this.
In many ways, we're starting from scratch on something that's been raging for almost an entire year.
That was Vice President Kamala Harris making false claims about the administration's...
That's 4 bull bleeps from Larry Kudlow on the mic in the background, or the hot mic. I miss Larry Kudlow. I like him.
So pure. That is so pure. It's just raw emotion.
You're right, it is. But now, by the way, so Anthony Fauci has recalibrated a little bit.
On the issue of whether there was a plan in place before the Biden administration took over, Kamala Harris, she spoke, the vice president, of course, spoke to HBO Axios over the weekend, and she said, she used this phrase again, we're starting from scratch. And I wonder if you agree with that the vaccination plan come January 20th of this year, you were starting from the beginning there, or there was something in place that just needed improvements?
What I think the vice president is referring to is that the actual plan of getting the vaccine doses into people's arms was really rather vague. I mean, it was not a well-coordinated plan. Getting the vaccines made, getting them shipped through Operation Warp Speed was okay. But I believe what the vice president is referring to is what is the process of actually getting these doses into people. That's something that we had to get much better organized now, with getting the community vaccine centers, getting the pharmacies involved, getting mobile units involved. So that's what I believe she was referring to.
All right. That'll do anyway, Anthony. So once again, a careful mixture of cover for the White House and cover for his arse there. From Dr. Anthony Fauci. I'm used to it. I have no faith in Fauci. Haven't had for some time, but that is that. Jen Psaki answers the questions.
The president, yourself, have frequently cited what you describe as the failures or the shortcomings of the Trump administration as it relates to their response to COVID. We're now nearly a month into this administration. Does the Biden administration now own the coronavirus response?
Well, certainly the President of the United States owns the response to the COVID pandemic. That's why he is focused on it every single day. However, it's important for the American people to know what we inherited when the President came into office. And what
inherited is back. That said, you know what? I retract that. Because although Obama was the king of inherited, to the point where we used to make just endless loops of him saying, what I inherited. Again and again, Trump was an inherited guy, too. Obama and Trump were very similar in a lot of ways.
he inherited was not enough supply, not enough vaccinators, not enough places.
Like you were saying, they expected to inherit no vaccines.
Right.
So they inherited many thousands % more than they thought they were going to inherit.
Right, and not to mention, like, these new ones that Biden just bought, he didn't do something new. He exercised clauses that were in contracts that Trump negotiated.
Saying he inherited those contracts?
I'm saying he inherited the vaccine contracts, yes.
For vaccinations to happen, communities had been left to fend for themselves. And so that's what he's been focused on and working on. But certainly, if he were standing here, he would say that's why it's the issue he wakes up every morning and is focused on, because addressing it is what's on the minds of the American people, and he's the president. It's his responsibility to focus on it.
Well, that's right. So communities were fending for themselves, much like the communities were fending for themselves in the summer when they were allowed to be fully involved in flames by angry rioters. But we're told by our media betters that there is no comparison between what happened in the Capitol, that violence, in the weeks, months-long violence that happened over the summer and into the fall, and still occasionally happens right now. Absolutely. It's two totally different things. Don't conflate the two.
I know there are idiots on other cable news channels that will say, well, you know, this mom and pop store was vandalized during the summer riots, and that's just as bad as the United States Capitol being vandalized. No, actually, no, jackass, it's not. The Capitol of the United States of America is the center of American democracy. And while I am a fierce believer in people's right to defend their private property,
not that fierce, apparently.
I'm not going to confuse a taco stand with the United States Capitol. I'm not going to confuse the selling of tacos with actually moving through a constitutional process that is laid out in the United States Constitution.
So I also believe that it's the legislative center of the United States, the Capitol building. Mm-hmm. It is not a sacred place whatsoever. No. It's a very pretty place and a historic place, although the complex itself, the buildings around it are just kind of awful inside, and the offices are terrible and drab. Mm-hmm. But it is not a sacred place whatsoever, the Capitol.
No,
it is a place of business and transactions, and most of them malevolent, unfortunately.
Right. I mean, you and I love U.S. history. We went on our honeymoon to Washington, D.C. That's where we are on D.C. as a place. Like, we really like it, but you have to have an internal line where you don't worship government and the people who work in government. Actually, there's like almost nothing worse to worship than government. It's really terrible. You know, it's politics and politicians are like the most deranged people and the most ridiculous, messy, terrible process that exists on the earth. I mean, and I guess there's that line about democracy that like democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others. I mean, like, I'm not trying to downplay how great the United States is and how well it functions compared to, you know, lots of places on the earth and in human history. But it's not worth your eternal devotion. It's not like special in that way where it's like, you know, you have to hold it in some high esteem. I mean, I hold people's taco stands, I think, in higher esteem than I hold Congress. Like, I really do. I have more respect for their standing in society, for somebody who's put together the time to run a business and make food for other people to eat and make that into a lucrative business model than I do for the cowards in Congress voting on stuff and passing the buck all the time.
I agree with the guy with the taco stand is a producer, a guy who is making a good in service, a guy who's providing
feeding people
exactly
delicious
the people
tacos.
In the Capitol building fleece him for all the hard work he does.
Yeah, they take
and
his
give
money.
his money to their buddies or whatever special interest that they like. So yes, you know, and we're not minimizing the attack of the Capitol. It was not a good day,
right?
Absolutely.
But I don't understand this whole thing. I think that you know, I'm not for attacking government buildings, obviously. But I think that government buildings are a much more legitimate target for protest than your neighbor's small businesses.
Oh, yeah.
It seems to me obvious that if you have a problem with the way the United States is run, you want to be protesting and yelling at Congress people, not like the guy next door who happens to have a taco stand. Like, what did he ever do?
And those
you?
taco stands are people who live in that community and people trying to make the community better. And those people were horribly damaged this summer. And for in the name of our racial reckoning or whatever, to be scoffing at the damage to
Hope
these
you
livelihoods.
had insurance, taco stand people.
Right. So there's my guy, Joe Scarborough. By the way, what happened to hard tacos? Where are they? Why? I mean, you can get them at home, obviously. Mm-hmm. But it used to be that the hard taco was the main taco in the country. And now it's very tough to find them. Very tough
Is it
to
like
find.
Not authentic hard tacos, maybe?
I don't know. Maybe it's not authentic. It probably is not authentic. Although I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, is a tortilla chip authentic? I don't know about that either.
I don't know either.
We need the hard taco to make a comeback. There was a place, Alice, many years ago. Actually, maybe you've been there. A fine dining restaurant, although you had to go in a very dangerous neighborhood. But you remember, in the 80s, there were almost no tacos up here. Mm-hmm. No, there was a place called Chi-Chi's on Route 1 in Danvers.
Like the salsa?
Exactly. There was a restaurant that was around. And then there was a place in a very dangerous neighborhood, a neighborhood more dangerous than Compton, than Watts, than Newark, New Jersey, than all the most dangerous neighborhoods in the country. A place called Woburn, Massachusetts. Alice. And in Woburn, Massachusetts, unfortunately, you'd have to go to Woburn for this, and I was from Winchester, so we would risk our lives to go there. There was a place called Bill and Bob's, Alice.
I have been to Bill and Bob's in Woburn.
Well, there you go. And so
They serve roast beef, though, I believe. Not
yes,
tacos.
they do. But no. They had tacos.
Not when I went.
I don't think you're right on those facts. They were one of the few places that ever had tacos up there. They taste a little different than most tacos. But Bill and Bob's had hard shell tacos. It was wrapped tightly in this metal foil, and then somebody pumped like grease into it. And it was a gorgeous thing. And now I'm hungry thinking about it because that's what my people do. I
just had chicken nuggets, by the way.
Oh, good. I bought
with leftover zesty sauce from Burger King that you left in the fridge.
Hey, that's what you get. You marry a fat husband, you're going to have leftover condiments all over the place.
I do. Yes. This
Isn't it good?
One thing that's an important thing to know about Tom Shattuck is that he does save sauce packets in a drawer in our house.
Of course, because
including like mayo packets and the zesty sauces. I happen to know they were refrigerated, and I happen to know they only came into the house like a week ago, so I knew they weren't like scary old. But like, you've had frightening mayo packets in this house.
Yeah, and especially if you get the mayo packets from Whole Foods and keep them anytime, maybe it's organic, whatever. It pours out like liquid.
Yeah,
like,
no.
Yeah, that is. It might as well just eat it in the emergency room.
So some sauce packets I'm okay with. Although I don't see the point of like ketchup because we always have ketchup around. But if it's like a good sauce, like a zesty sauce, then I can get behind
So
it.
I used to work with Howie Carr. Howie used to take the ketchup packets and squeeze them into the ketchup bottle, which I respect absolutely.
But then how do you know how old the ketchup is in the bottom?
The stuff at the bottom is decades old. Eat from the top.
I'm concerned.
You're one of those people. And don't have hot dogs at Howie's house. So visiting this stuff, a lot of the stuff comes on the heels of Lindsey Graham equating the two things, the riots, and it's an old conversation. But
yeah, he pointed out that Kamala was posting bail funds.
Right. So that's what we're going to right now. Don Lemon had, and I haven't had a dose of Don Lemon stupid in a while. So I miss it. So this is Don Lemon elucidating on the subject like only he can.
Graham insists anything Trump said leading up to the deadly insurrection is what Graham calls, and I quote here, politically protected speech.
I'm glad he let us know that he was quoting there.
Yeah.
Graham calls, and I quote here,
we wouldn't want
politically protected speech. You could also just say politically protected speech, and we could infer that Graham was saying.
Yeah, but he doesn't want
and
anyone...
I quote here.
He doesn't want anyone to think that he thinks Trump's speech is politically protected by the First Amendment. He wouldn't want us to get confused and think that that's his interpretation.
No.
Tell that to the family of Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick, who
Ooh, my goodness. Well,
wow, burn.
Can we tell something to the family of David Dorn, who was killed also in St. Louis during the riots that Don Lemon was thrilled with? What other families can we tell things to when their riots result in the death of innocents?
As far as I know, and I'm not trying to make excuses for the Capitol riots, but I don't think we know that Brian Sicknick's death was related to the riots yet.
We don't know anything about that. It's very interesting.
It could be, and I think that that should be investigated, and we should know the truth of what happened. And if people's actions were directly responsible for his death, they should absolutely be held to account.
Yeah.
But from the most recent information I've heard is that he had a stroke more than 24 hours later. So I don't know whether that was caused by the riots or not.
It's very odd. The whole thing is very odd.
his life after defending lawmakers and our democracy. Well, yesterday on state TV news, Graham...
So here's another thing. I don't think Don Lemon knows how that's supposed to be used. It's not state TV news because the state is run by Democrats now.
Right.
So state TV news is CNN and Don Lemon.
Right. And it's silly. It's so silly anyway because Fox News kicks complete butt of all the other stations in the free market. If anybody doesn't need to be propped up by the state, it's Fox News.
Well, right. And
But,
not only that,
also-
but the joke is, of course, that Fox
Right.
News was just a puppet for
Right.
Donald Trump.
They were calling it, yeah, I know.
Right, then that's
the
the
mouthpiece
state,
of the administration.
state-run media.
State
But there
TV.
is, and the another point is, there is actually state-run media
Yeah.
that exists in public broadcasting.
And they were left-wing even when Trump was president.
Yes, continue to be. And they get state-run fund money. That half of it came in the stimulus last year.
Not only defended the former president, claiming the trial was unconstitutional, he threatened someone else with impeachment.
We've opened Pandora's box to future presidents, and if you use this model, I don't know how Kamala Harris doesn't get impeached if the Republicans take over the House, because she actually bailed out rioters, and one of the rioters went back to the streets and broke somebody's head open. So we've opened Pandora's box here.
So
what, Tom?
Lindsay is reaching, right? Now, if you're wondering what all this Pandora's box talk is about, this is a story. After the police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis last spring, thousands of people, including Black Lives Matter supporters, took to the streets. Kamala Harris tweeted support for donations to the Minnesota Freedom Fund, which
they, and I quote, took to the streets. Is that what happened? Is that what happened to the taco stands? That people took to the streets and the taco stands instantaneously combusted? Took to the streets.
Tell people post bail if they were arrested while protesting. So,
how many people get arrested while protesting? You know, you there with that sign, sorry, you're under arrest. You know, I think when protesting takes the form of throwing a brick at a cop's head, that's when you get arrested.
Well, right. Or other things, because most of these bail funds existed well before the protests and were not set up to bail out protesters. These bail funds were set up to bail out everybody because they disagree with bail as a concept. You know, they believe that it's wrong for, you know, people who can pay to not have to sit in jail while they wait for trial, and people who can't pay or that they have to sit in jail. You know, that's not fair. So they just bail out everybody. And I mean, I don't know the particular one. The Minnesota one, I think, is the one she tweeted. You know, who else they bailed out after that. But I can assure you it was not all protesters, because I know the Massachusetts one, it was a huge scandal because they were awash in money after the protests, and they bailed out all kinds of people. They bailed out a sex offender in the last town we lived in, and all the people who had donated to the bail fund, because they're all good progressives who all supported Black Lives Matter, donated to the bail fund like they were told to do. They got the sex offender put right back in their neighborhood when the bail fund put up $30,000 bail for him to get him back out there. It's you know, that the bail funds are, you know, maybe that's your issue and maybe you think bail in general is wrong, but that's what it's for. It's not like, oh, in the mean, repressive, authoritarian country where they arrest people just for free speech, it lets people post bail, but just for nice things like that. Like, we're not arresting people just for free speech in this country. We're arresting them for bad things that they do. And if you want bail posted for people who do bad stuff in your community because you believe in that on principle, then go ahead and donate to the bail funds. But don't do it because you think it's just going to go to like nice, sweet protesters who...
No, none of these rackets are targeted. You kidding me?
Well, let's set the record straight. There was no bailing out, right? Kamala Harris tweeted about a fund to help people post bail.
Sounds like she incited people to give to a bail fund to release people. See, and she incited that action to me.
Which is entirely legal.
Nobody's saying it wasn't legal.
Yeah, and not to mention she posted the thing about the bail fund after a weekend in which the mayor of that town was calling the protesters, quote unquote, terrorists because they were burning down buildings and destroying the community. A Democrat, by the way, was saying these are not people from our community. These are terrorist related groups. These are organized crime related groups. Like, we need help. We cannot support this. We need to stop the protests because it's giving cover to bad people to do bad stuff in our community. And she's out there tweeting to bail out all the people that they're arresting. Come on, guys, help bail them out. If that's not incitement, I mean, obviously, Don Lemon, it's free speech to tell people to bail people out. But it's also free speech for Trump to tell people to protest peacefully.
Right, and she also told people they shouldn't stop, don't stop.
Mm-hmm. So did Ayanna Pressley.
Right.
We need to have unrest in the streets as long as we have unrest in our lives. Oh, okay. Like, so that's not incitement.
So did AOC, yeah. And I mean, the best thing about Don Lemon is that he's explaining to us what they mean by Pandora's box. And he's explaining to people what they mean because he's never taken this angle or talked about this angle before. He's never thought to bring it to his show that the left would be inciting these riots or encouraging them whatsoever. He was laser focused on Trump, white supremacists, cops, all bad, defund police.
But you're right. That does show. They've literally never, it's never occurred to them that the standard they create for Trump could then be pointed back at Democrats who do the same thing or worse all the time.
No.
It's legitimately like never crossed their minds because
just look at the
weird rules
Alice.
that they make up are only meant to apply to people they don't like, not to people that they actually agree with.
Let me finish this audio, and I want to get back to that.
Stop it, Lindsay. You guys know better than that. Well, maybe you don't. Donald Trump incited an insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. People were killed. Our elected representatives had to run for their lives. Our democracy was in peril. There's no comparison. Enough, though, Lindsey Graham and most of the GOP want to move past the Capitol riot, right? The investigation is far from over.
You can fill the Capitol with as many unarmed, antlered guys as you want. The democracy was not in peril. That was not happening.
Right.
There were not tanks making their way through. This was not a coup. And to suggest that people were running scared and people were running for their lives and people were killed, well, yes, that did happen over the summer.
Right. I mean, and this is, like, when you say this about the insurrection, I meant to send you this to get this audio, but I forgot to. Senator Ron Johnson, after the impeachment vote, was yesterday on a local radio interview talking about this, about the insurrection thing. And he said that the Capitol riots didn't seem like an armed insurrection to me. And he said, this didn't seem like an armed insurrection to me. I mean, armed. When you hear armed, don't you think of firearms? Here's the questions I would have liked to ask. How many firearms were confiscated? How many shots were fired? I'm only aware of one, and I'll defend that law enforcement officer for taking that shot. It was a tragedy, okay, but there was only one. So here you go. The person who was there is saying it wasn't an armed insurrection. You know, and I agree. There's a lot of negative words you can use about what happened at the Capitol on January 6th. But this was not an insurrection. If this was an insurrection, they were doing a really bad job because most of them didn't bring weapons with them, and they were not like. I mean,
well, they didn't seem to know what to do once they got into the Senate. They were rifling through Ted Cruz's desk at one point. One guy wearing a beaver pelt sits in the chair, and another dude yells at him. I mean, I don't think that these guys expected to be in the building. You know, you assume you're going to be repelled.
These were hooligans, and a lot of them probably did intend some form of violence, but this wasn't like some planned attack to overthrow the government with Trump at its head. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't, much as some people would like Trump to have been Julius Caesar and cross the Rubicon, that is not what occurred here.
So you were just mentioning the left never expecting their own arguments and their own parameters and discussions to be used and overlaid on their own actions when it comes to it. But you unearthed today some Red Steez stuff that was perfect and a great example of this. You can just describe it if you want. You don't have to find it.
Yeah, so basically he has been, because lefties during
his name is Stephen Miller, not the one in the campaign.
Yeah,
he's a journalist. He goes by Red Steez on his Twitter handle, and he's a must-follow tweeter.
Yeah,
he's much better at tweeting than he is at anything else.
Yeah, but his tweets are gold. So he's been taking a page from the left's book, who spent the last year tweeting about how many people were dying on Trump's watch, and often comparing it to 9/11, like, a 9/11 worth of Americans every day is dying. Like, we can't look away. This is a tragedy unfolding. 9/11 airplanes are full of Americans would be falling out of the sky. That's how many people are dying of COVID due to Trump. This was happening on the left for the last 12 months. And so he's taken a page from their book and started tweeting similar things about the Biden administration. And he tweeted today, since Joe Biden took office, 79,000 Americans have died from COVID-19. Think about that. That is 26.5 9/11s or 6 World Trade Centers coming down every single day of Joe Biden's presidency. This is shameful. We cannot look away. So, obviously, this is a joke, making fun of people who would say this because it's an insane comparison to make.
Right.
But a lot of the same people who made the comparison,
the same people who inspired him to joke about it in the first place, have now called him out for being disgraceful, low rent, bottom feeder, and classless for using 9/11 comparisons. They've walked right into the trap. He's gone back and found their tweets doing the same thing.
Right. So, for example, Aaron Rupar, who's a big lefty who's always tweeting stuff, had literally tweeted about how many 9/11s of Americans were dying of COVID under Trump. And he was trying to shame Stephen Miller. This tells you a lot about Stephen Miller. Like, that he was saying this. And then people were tweeting his own screenshot back at him that was the same thing. That was what he was making fun of. It was really incredible how many people really could not understand the point at all.
No, there's no introspection. There is no self-reflection, and it's mostly on the left now. It really is. It's remarkable. I mean, they are yelling at innocent people walking down the street, for being horrible people in their minds because they like Trump, but they don't see themselves as somebody who's yelling at somebody. Or they're yelling at women, petite women in stores because they're not wearing masks, or they might be Trump fans, whatever, and they're in their faces trying to antagonize them. But they would never consider themselves somebody who would yell at a woman. Like, no, that wouldn't be me.
No, they're good people. I mean, T.J. Ducklo wouldn't consider himself somebody who would yell at a woman.
No, he's a really good person. He believes in feminism of some sort, and that's why women have to be respected, unless, of course, they call out this cancel culture and this environment of tattling on each other, informing and scrutinizing your neighbors' every action. In which case they have to lose their jobs on Star Wars spin-offs, which is of course what happened to Gina Carano. And now, of course, Hasbro is canceling production of her Cara Dune Mandalorian action figures.
Yeah, you can't make action figures of somebody who has ever compared anything to Hitler. That would not be
So
okay.
that is gone. She is gone. And the action, any trace of her now must be gone because she made a non-offensive comparison.
Right. Or, as offensive as a comparison people on the left make 17 times a day. They're completely out of control. They have no... absolutely zero, like you said, introspection. They cannot look at themselves and understand how they look to other people. They can't. So that's why they can't understand the joke when Stephen Miller makes fun of them for saying, like, how many Americans Trump murdered from COVID or whatever. Like, that when you turn it around on them and make fun of them for it, they literally can't understand what the joke is because they can't see themselves that way. They cannot imagine themselves that way. And it's funny because I've mentioned this before, but like I saw somebody complaining on Twitter and it was one of those things where the page refreshed and it went away. So I'll never find it again, who it was or anything. But it was like some blue checkmark person was saying, basically like complaining, remember how we all had to endure those think pieces about going and talking to Trump voters in Ohio and asking them what they think and why they are. Like, how come we don't see that about Biden voters, like why they voted? Like, how come we're not seeing think pieces about why people voted for Biden? And the answer, which they can't think of because this would never occur to them in a million years to think this way, is that we all already know what they think because they tell it to us all the time in every movie, in every TV show, at every awards show, on every cable news show except for Fox News. In every newspaper, we know why they wanted us to vote for Biden. We heard about it. We've heard about what they think about Trump and the whole thing. There's not some mystery what they think. The reason you guys went and interviewed a bunch of Trump supporters is because you didn't know anybody and literally couldn't imagine anybody who would vote for Trump. So you had to go find out who these strange people were.
Yes, these strange Nazis were, and you could never come up with any. The odd thing was, they were very elusive. These Trump Nazis. Dateline Washington, D.C., Alice. First Lady Jill Biden wore a scrunchie while shopping for macaroons and such.
At a black-owned business, I'll have
good.
you know.
Oh, yes, good.
Slay Queen in your scrunchie.
Good, and
the
people
first lady
can't get over it.
know we needed.
And people are dying over it on Twitter. So part of what I never realized I needed was a FLOTUS and a scrunchie.
Yep.
Dr. Biden with a scrunchy ponytail buying chocolate is the normal I need from my FLOTUS. The last FLOTUS was just so nasty, right?
She was terrible. Not relatable.
She was not big into fashion accessories, the last one that you'd ever want to notice, right? People are awful. People are so mean. Alice and I just watched the Britney Spears thing. It's like the way people treated Britney Spears, they absolutely treated Melania Trump from day one.
Yeah.
It's like just vicious. And, you allow these lefties to be the misogynists they always really want to be, and they will take advantage in a second. They're all TJ Ducklow. Going to destroy you. Stupid harlot.
Other news stories about the Bidens, what the Bidens are up to. Well, 9/11's worth of Americans die every day of COVID. Is that celebrating President's Day, Biden got together with his grandchildren and they got him custom-made presidential swag, a hat that says Camp David with the presidential seal on it, and then it says Pop on the back of the hat. This is from
Corn Pop?
This is from Town and Country Mag. Mm-hmm. Is reporting on this, and then
by the way,
a flight jacket for Air Force One too, as well.
And of course, everybody was just up in arms and in awe about him playing as Luigi in Mario Kart against his granddaughter. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad he's not driving a real car. That's first. I want to say that. And second, this kind of coverage is fine, but it's just you cannot. It is too rich to not go contrast between what they were doing. And now, the Mario Kart thing, the scrunchie would be a scandal. The Mario Kart thing would be a scandal. Mm-hmm. Him with the German Shepherds, which wouldn't be allowed under Trump. That is totally Hitler Eagle's nest. That would be a scandal. And the media would find 1,000 things wrong about them. Mm-hmm. The pedigree of the dogs. One of these dogs would bite somebody. These a callback, a wink, wink, nod, nod to Nazism. And they would get this fervor going and create these storm clouds. Mm-hmm. And then complain about the anxiety in the country. How do we take down the temperature? And now they're talking about Mario Kart and scrunchies, and they're saying, with Biden, the temperature's down now? It's like, yeah, a-hole, jackasses Joe Scarborough would say, because you didn't start a freaking fire.
Right.
Right.
In other Biden news, sometimes he likes a fire in the Oval Office. There's a fireplace in there. And sometimes, get this, I just love him. Sometimes he even puts his own log on the fire if the fire's going down.
I saw that too.
Is that relatable or what?
I saw that too, and I do like that he does use the fireplace, and it does also increase the chances of him burning the entire executive mansion down with no casualties, which would be interesting. So I don't mind that he uses the fireplace. I like the thoughtful piece about how he tends to go to bed on the early side. He's going to bed on the early side.
Yeah, I bet he does.
Yeah, I bet he does too. The fact that he's constantly cold and needs an inferno in the fireplace and nods off, around 4 p.m. We are not surprised by this. I saw him out there shuffling around the Candy Hearts with Dr. Jill and her scrunchie over the weekend, and he ain't overly young.
Oh man, I shouldn't really be laughing because it is sad, but I can't believe his family's doing this to him. Shoving him out there. Doesn't Dr. Jill, shouldn't she feel a little weird about parading him around like this when he's, clearly...
You know what, Alice? Some of the trappings, I think, of the presidency are really, really good. So, I don't know what you want.
Yeah, but it's a sad state of affairs because I almost, for a second, before I noticed it was from the Babylon Bee, believed a Babylon Bee story because I was looking at all this various Biden coverage and going oh my God, have they really all lost their minds? That they're covering him this way about him putting a log on the fire and whatever. And then I saw a Babylon Bee headline that was the moment we didn't know we needed, Biden picks up his own dog poop from Champ on the way on the grounds. And it was from the Babylon Bee, but I had to do a double take before I noticed it was from the Babylon Bee because that's the sad thing is it's really not that far
Let me tell you one thing. That's a very good
from
point.
The actual news coverage.
So there's somebody on the grounds who has to pick that up. If that was Trump's dog, you would know all about that person who was made to pick that up. Right. If it was a person of color, you would really know all about that person.
Yeah, I'm starting to think maybe from what you're saying, that maybe it wasn't a mistake for Trump not to have a dog.
It was refreshing for him not to have a dog because it just shows he wasn't into that BS. He had no time for dogs. He doesn't find them productive. He finds them dirty in the way, and not. I mean, we have. I don't want to use my dogs because I have an icy relationship with them. And actually, you got bit by one today, Alice. Would you like to tell the people?
No.
Okay.
It's a sensitive subject.
Is it really?
Pepper nipped me. My feelings are hurt.
It looked like that she was sending a message.
She was sending the message that she didn't want to go in the kitchen because I was putting her in the kitchen because she'd been going through trash cans looking for dirty diapers. So I went to bring Pepper back to the kitchen, and I grabbed her collar, and she bit me because I was...
Yep. That's what I tell you.
Preventing
we
her
need the
from
training
living
collar
the good
back.
life. Preventing her from living the good life that she wants to live, eating our trash.
You need the training collar back.
Yeah, but I'm sad. My feelings are hurt. I was thinking maybe we should sign her up for a training program, honey.
Oh, you know what? I have no comment on advice of my attorney. I have no comment. All right, Alice, are we ready to cook this up and go head to Taco Tuesday, or you got something else?
Let me just make
Feels
sure.
like we're missing something. It's Taco Tuesday.
Yeah, I feel like we missed something to talk about that we were going to talk about, but maybe we didn't. Maybe that was it. Oh, I know. The Lincoln Project. This is what I wanted to talk about.
Oh,
so
good.
Amanda Becker, the reporter from the 19th News about women at the intersection of politics and equality or whatever, who Steve Schmidt had outed her private messages with people from his company that he shouldn't have had access to. She has come out with her story, and she has 4 sources that confirmed that Steve Schmidt in particular and other leadership in general knew about John Weaver's predations on young men as early as last March.
That seems like it's March is earlier than January, which is what he said he learned about them originally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like that to me. So
wow, it's as if they were just profiteering regardless of their predatory actions of one of their business partners.
It seems odd. But, I'm sure we'll find out more from the results of the independent investigation.
We love negative Lincoln Project news. We love you guys, too, by the way. Thank you very much for listening. Please do leave a 5-star rating if you can. If you don't have to. I hate when people ask for this, but if you don't have to, you don't have to. I don't even know if it matters. Does it matter?
I think it probably matters.
I don't know. Okay, and in a review if you can. We have all our cool merch, which is good stuff. I mean, the stuff that sucked, we got rid of the mugs. But I really think the shirts are cool, and there are a couple of new ones on there. Which are the new ones again?
Crazy Anxious Beyonce's Husband.
You get it? I made that up, by the way. I'll sign that, by the way, if I see you somewhere.
And also up on the website is merch for the Higher Green Jobs Festival, which is going to happen really soon, I think.
Yeah.
Just like
Actually,
the green jobs are going to happen really
That's
soon.
something that we need to follow every week on updates on that stuff. And remind me, too. I should get that
and
on
by the way, speaking of green jobs, Texas still has no power, which is actually, I mean, there's like a humanitarian crisis unfolding in the middle of this country right now. It's not just Texas, it's all across.
Yeah.
And it's actually, to be totally fair, it's not just the green energy that's failing, it's also their coal plants are failing and their nuclear power plants are failing. So there's a host of things that are failing that are not designed to cope with these temperatures.
That sucks. If you're one of those people who's had your power knocked out and you're freezing right now, that sucks. Sorry
but yeah,
about
it's
that.
like 18 degrees in the daytime.
Yeah. If you need us to get the message out on any resources or whatever, we're happy
it's
to do that.
pretty bad in Texas. There have been a bunch of people that have died of carbon monoxide poisoning, very sadly, because they've been trying to use other things like
That's
sitting in the car
in
the garage to warm up or whatever. Yeah, it's really bad. It's terrible. So, prayers for all those people that are suffering through that. That is an awful, awful situation right now. And I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot more. Anson, just move that camera again.
It's okay. It's okay.
In any case, you can talk to us on Twitter at BurnBarrelPod, on Facebook.com/BurnBarrelPodcast. You can send us an email, burnbarrelpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on YouTube. That's Tom Shattuck's Burn Barrel on YouTube. That's the channel. You can subscribe there or wherever else you listen to podcasts. You can leave comments and reviews and give the videos a thumbs up, all those good things.
C'est la vie.